you. You get fairy dust, I get fairy dust. Oh, wait, I get fairy dust. That was my fairy dust. And now it's your turn for your fairy dust. Hello, cutie. We are going to talk about today disenfranchised grief. Disenfranchised grief is when your grief is not socially sanctioned, is not publicly mourned or openly acknowledged. Okay, so in olden times, like 3 or 4 months ago, if one of us told a friend of ours or even a casual acquaintance, like, you know, my mom has cancer, that would have been met with, oh my God, are you okay? Like, oh, this is the worst thing that, you know, oh, the terrible, terrible. Or my husband died, you know, oh, fuck, like, how are you? Are you okay? What can I do? Da, 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 da. Okay. So that doesn't exist anymore. That is gone. It's gone. And so that is why I want to talk about this. I feel like all of us are suffering under a kind of disenfranchised grief. So like before, okay, so disenfranchised grief was coined by a grief researcher, Kenneth Doka. And it has always fascinated me. You know, it's like, because I'm always on the side of somebody who's disenfranchised, of course. But it really, so the old definition, it's not the old definition, but the way that we used to think about, like when I learned about this like 15 or more years ago, we would think more in terms of disenfranchised grief. So an example of that, not socially sanctioned. So somebody who was gay and they had, a life partner before marriage was legal, and so if they did not get the same sympathy, empathy, loving kindness, because their relationship was not socially sanctioned. And so if they had somebody in their life, oh, you okay? Somebody in their life die, people would not give them the full amount of like, oh my God, that if, you know, let's say 20 years ago, a person that was in a relationship with the same sex, their person died, you know, again, their significant other, their partner died, would not be met with the same respect, honoring, comforting from a person who had been together the same amount of time, but it was a heterosexual couple. And so a lot of that has changed. Some hasn't, but a lot of that has changed since this term became in our whatever therapy lexicon. So other examples of disenfranchised grief, again, how we would think of it before, you know, again, maybe 15 years ago. Well, some of this would still be the case. So somebody who, what if a person is on their second marriage, but the husband from the first marriage dies and they had a good relationship? What's that grief? You know, like, we wouldn't greet it with the same, like, oh my God, that we would if her present day spouse died. It's just different. Also, stepchildren and step-parents, you know, it's like, oh my God, my parent died. Well, it's my step-parent. Oh, like, it's just not like the same empathy, sympathy, et cetera, et cetera. Another disenfranchised grief would be miscarriage or stillborn loss. And so, again, that is changing, but not enough, I would say, even in this time. Okay, So why am I using this term now? Who am I using it for? I'm using it for a few people. Number one, if you have a person, if you are grieving right now, so this is April 2020, if you are grieving and you're in your first year of grief, just a asterisk, you never get over a loss, you only learn to live with it. So I'm not saying that the second, the years when you need to be done with grief. What I am saying is that during that first year of grief, people, still can handle the fact that you're sad about your person that died 1 year ago. You still could get empathy, again, before pandemic, you could still get empathy like 8 months in. Somebody would say, if like it was a person's birthday, or if it was my birthday and the person I love died, or if it was a holiday, the first holiday without the loved one, we might have friends in our circle that would remember that. And, so my only point by saying it's just a year is, that disenfranchised just for 1 year, again, is just, gauging off of how the support you get in that first year. Anybody that's grieved before this can tell you that social support really only lasts for like 3 months. Like if you're lucky, if you can get like people to still remember 8 months in, 9 months in. But okay. So now those people, so if let's say somebody's mom died in 3 months ago in December, and again, it's April right now when I'm recording this, that person, oh my God. But now, so it's December, it's 4 months since the person died. Now that's all gone. That's all gone. That's all gone. Not because people are bad, but because people are in another place. We're all trying to get by. And it's almost like you aren't allowed to grieve. You aren't allowed to, like, I'm sad about my mom who died 4 months ago. You're not going to get the same sympathy that you did before this pandemic. It's just people's bandwidth. They can't, and also you might feel guilty or ashamed of still feeling bad, even though that is completely normal and natural. We're going to be, full on grief for 2 years. Like, I know that, but again, society only kind of gives you to that first year and barely that. But now it's just like, we might say something like, oh, well, at least my person didn't have coronavirus, or at least, like you're trying to like make it right for yourself. Like, oh, well, these people have it worse, or I can't speak my pain anymore because, okay. So that's why I'm mentioning it. So these are the people who, the people who are in their first year of grief. So their grief happened a year ago to now. They can tell that the social support and the public mourning is not great right now, that they're not going to have it, and it's not like it was. And so therefore their grief is disenfranchised. So that's one group where the grief is disenfranchised. Another group of people whose grief is disenfranchised is the people who died during the pandemic, who die of something else, who die of their cancer, who die of natural causes, who die of a car accident, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if we were to say in public, my mother died in a car accident, or just like my mother died, oh, how did she die? A car accident, oh. Where it would be before, how did your mother die? A car accident, oh my God, how are you walking? Like, you know what I mean? And so now, and again, this not because people are bad, it's just because of what we're all trying to fucking cope with our own lives. And so, and maybe, and I guiltily have thought that, like, anytime I hear like, somebody famous dying or getting sick or whatever, it's just like, oh, is that corona? Again, I personally think that that thought pattern, somebody's dead, oh, was it corona, is actually me and my psyche trying to continue to figure out how to live through the pandemic. Like like what's happened, I need to put this into my learning about this pandemic. I need to see how many people are dying from that. It's like, so we're not bad for thinking that. And again, none of this is bad, but I want to enfranchise. I want to speak out. I want to say, I get it. I see you. I know. And you don't. The world may be disenfranchising our grief, but we don't have to. And we can figure out tools and strategies on how to get through these times if we are in active grief, to hold the flame, like have a remembrance, have a place in your life, a space in your psyche where you give yourself permission to fully grieve. And again, it would be nice if somebody else could be in it with us. Okay, so that's a way the people are being disenfranchised. Another group of people who will be disenfranchised are the people who have family members die of corona. Because probably instead, some people will be amazing, like, oh my God. But other people might, again, be trying to, like, unconsciously, or I will say for myself, like, stupidly, or like lizard brainly, trying to figure out how to survive this pandemic, might ask questions like, they might want you to tell this story. And it's not so much about the your death of your person who died of COVID-19. It's more about the story of how it all happened. And you, again, you don't, usually people, like if I said my person died, yeah, it was in a car accident, 9 times out of 10, the person's going to be like, well, whose fault was it? And how did it go? And where were they driving? And who, it's, you're like, oh, car accident. Okay. That's all I need to know. Great. But this, I bet you anything, and I don't know this, but I bet my hunch is so I actually do think, in addition to people who are already grieving, whose person died in the past, disenfranchised, people who die now, but of causes other than COVID, will be disenfranchised, and COVID people will be disenfranchised. If their person died of any other way. Another way the COVID people and also the people who die during this pandemic of other causes, that they will be disenfranchised, is just the sheer number of people that have died or will die. And so, again, when somebody that we care about, their father dies, we don't think about like, oh, a lot of other fathers probably died in April too. Like that's not how we think. But because of just the fact of the pandemic, and we all know the death toll, like it's told to us like probably daily, like we can't get away from it. So I just, this to me, oh God, I love you guys so much. Like, to me, this is really, really important. And I know for me, and this is not about being a victim in any way, shape, or form, but for me, it is acknowledging, yeah, this would be different. And how then do I cope? What do I need to do to take care of myself and to enfranchise my own grief during this time? This is just a beginning conversation. You heard me say at the beginning, and I will tell you what I meant when I said all of us are having disenfranchised grief, and for a lot of us the grief is straight up and we can tell it, but there's something called in grief therapy world, grief research, one of the things we all lose, no matter what the death is, no matter how the person died, no matter what the relationship is, part of what we lose is it's called the loss of the assumptive world. That we predict, we had our lives like where we went, like I'm 55 years old. Like I've been living this whole time, never even dreaming of a pandemic. Like, again, saw the movies because I love a good disaster shit. Like, but it never, it's like you would, like, oh, there's always going to be smart people with answers. Like, this won't be a problem. Like, this is just fiction. Like, this is, and even though I had in my lifetime, I have experienced, we heard about the Ebola, we heard about the SARS, but still it was contained and there were other safe places to go or whatever. This is absolutely not. Like, that assumptive life is over, and it will always be over for us. It will always be over. We don't get it back. That's why one of the hard parts of grief is dealing with our own mortality, like coming into our existential, the existentiality is not a word, but it's really sounds good, of it all. The idea, again, the assumptive world where I get to live where, my pet never dies, or I get to live in a world that's stupid, but you know what I mean? Like we just don't, like both of my parents right now are alive. And so the assumptive world is that I will always have parents. And when one of them dies, that will be over for me. Of course, I'm a grief counselor, so I'm probably that's not gonna be a shock to me. But a pandemic is a loss of an assumptive world. A world in which there's always toilet paper for us. A world in which Clorox wipes, no problem. That world is now gone, and we will never get it back. Like, once an assumptive world is gone, it's gone. Goodbye. And that is fucking sad. And that's what grief is about. And that's why I think all of us have a level of disenfranchised grief. I know for me, when I went to the store for the first time, seeing on the news and the toilet paper and blah, 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 and then I go to my store and there's no toilet paper. That did something to me. That was probably a little tombstone on my assumptive world. Like, I remember I kind of stood there for a moment like, this isn't real. What, am I in my Kroger? Just thinking that, and yeah. So a lot of assumptive worlds, and I would love to continue talking about this. My other existential bitches, like we love this shit. And I think part of the reason why I became a grief counselor, I know that there's a lot of other reasons, but to grapple with this life and death shit. And of course, I'm an existential bitch, so of course. But I'll take all questions. I'll take whatever. This coming Saturday, so this is, I don't know what it is, April 14th or something. This Saturday, this is a Wednesday, yep, will be a grief Zoom call if you want to get on it, talking about what we've already lost. And we have lost a lot, we've lost a lot, and I have only the tip of the iceberg. And I want to say, for any other groups that I have talked about that are disenfranchised, but I didn't mention you, I'm heartbroken because it's very important for me not to leave anybody out, but I want to tell you I am so, so sorry, and I acknowledge your disenfranchisement as well. Anyway, you're amazing. I love you. I am so honored. This is incredible. We're going through something really, really important.